Well, hello everyone. Dr. Matthews here, Associate Professor of Criminal Justice. Welcome to RFFlow. Today I want to talk to you about the timeline. Timelines are our friend. Always feed the timeline. This is a short presentation on how to create a timeline using RFFlow. After you've loaded up the RFFlow tool, come to where it says Tools, scooch down to where it says Auto Charts, move over to where it says Enter the Timeline Data. Once you enter the timeline data, you'll come up with this particular screen. I'm going to maximize the screen to make it easier for you to see. The first thing you'll note is you have the same general conventions: File, Edit, Insert, Tools, and Help. The Help is, of course, one of the most useful features of RFFlow. Let's begin by adding an event. Simply click on Add an Event, and what you'll come up with is this block of information. As you can tell, most of the information is readily available to you. The title of the event is going to be a simple, short synopsis of the information you're trying to convey in that particular event. For this simulated information, we're going to add in a company acquired by B&D Industries. One of the things that you'll want to add, of course, is the date of the event, and in this case, it was actually the 2nd of February 2015. So we'll click on the year to minimize that. Click on the year again and you can get these year blanks. Once you pick up the year, you'll pick up February the 4th. And that would be the year of that particular incident. Some of the things you might also add is the end date. If this was an incident that covered a period of time or a particular period of time that you were trying to cover or trying to capture, you could click on the end date. One of the other more important pieces of information is this information here, the source data. So in the source data, you're actually answering the question where this information came from. If it came from a particular document, then you would, of course, reference that document. If it came from an individual, you would reference that individual. Whatever the source of that information is what you would put here. In this case, it was a Dun & Bradstreet Financial Investigative Survey. So we'll use that. And then finally, you would have the entities. The entities themselves is another place where you would add in that same information. If there's an entity of interest that's of value or of significance to this particular instance, you would add in the entities. I'll show you where to add that in just a moment. So we've got all the information that we need for this particular event. We'll just click OK, and you'll see the event itself shows up here. So let's say that we wanted to actually add Dun & Bradstreet Financial Crimes, because we might see them again, as an entity of interest. If you click on the Add Remove Entity, it'll give you an opportunity to add in the Dun & Bradstreet Financial Crimes entity, and then you can add a new entity. As you continue to, and then simply hit OK. As you continue to add in other events, this timeline will become a little bit more full and a little bit easier for you to see. So what I'm going to do now is just stop the video, go ahead and fill out the rest of the timeline so that you have an idea of what it is we're looking at. So for simulated purposes, you can see here I've got 14 different events that are relevant and that correspond with this particular timeline. If you click onto the Add Remove Entities, you'll see that I also have a list of different entities of interest that are also associated with this particular timeline. Now let's go about drawing the timeline itself. But before we do, there's one more area that you might want to include, and that is the title block. So click on Tools, Add a Title, and here in the title is where you would put the information regarding who prepared the survey and any other salient points that you want to cover. So there you have a simple idea of how to fill out the title block. Then simply hit OK. The next thing we're going to want to do is actually draw the timeline itself. So we would File and then Save this particular timeline. Once we've saved it, we'll need to go back in and pick it up again. One of the key points that often gets overlooked is remembering where to pick up the information that you just saved. So make sure that you save it to some place within your folder that you can get to very quickly. Now let's go about drawing the timeline. Once you return to the front of the RFFlow, click on Tools, and now we're going to Auto Charts and actually draw the timeline. Once you click on Draw the Timeline, you're met with this message. Simply click Next. And the first thing it asks you for is to find where that information came from. So we're going to use this information right here. That's what we saved it as, Fraud 2, and click Open. Now you're going to be met with a number of other prompts. How do you want your timeline to be displayed? And you can experiment with the various ways of displaying your timeline. Whichever form works best for you is the one that you should select. I'm going to select this top form because it's pretty simple. Click OK, and you're also faced with a number of other choices. You can have your timeline depicted by the same degree of information that you put in there. So if you put in hours or just days or just weeks, then you would select that as the depiction of your timeline. We're going to click OK, and then finally it's going to ask, what do you want displayed on your timeline? In this case, we want the time of the event displayed as well as all the other information. There's nothing else here to be changed, so we're going to go ahead and click OK. Once you click OK, you'll see that your timeline has been created. Very simple, very easy timeline to prepare. So there you have it. That's how you create a timeline in RFFlow. How you go about printing the timeline is also pretty simple. The first thing you need to do is make sure that you have the appropriate printer selected. So if you have a plotter or a large scale printer to print your timeline on, simply go into File, select on the page setup. This will give you the various methods for your timeline to be displayed, whether it's horizontally by 2, 3, 4 or more pages. The orientation, which in most cases for the timeline is going to be landscape, the margins if there are any, and then the paper size. If you have a printer selected, the paper size would already show up. If not, simply click OK, come back to File, go to Print Setup, and here is where you would set up the printer that you're going to be using. I'm going to use just this Microsoft OneNote, and I would say it's going to be tabloid. So I'll select tabloid, and you'll see the timeline itself also adjusts to be able to fit the tabloid size. So when I go to print, this would print in a tabloid longitudinal or landscape manner, and all the information that I was looking for is there. As you can see, this is I had the date and the time reflected for each of the particular events. What these cracks indicate are splits in times and also splits between days. So there you have it. A simple timeline using RFFlow. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My contact information will be at the end of this video. Hey, thanks a lot. Have a great rest of the day.